Good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you must be super energized after the speed dating session. So I'm here to feed your thoughts with a better volunteer conversion. Not just because I'm the volunteer manager at Bhumi, definitely not. That's the reason. Why I feel myself to be best for this topic is because I am a testament in itself. From a college student from a college student who just wanted to post some couple of pics. So I am a college student, which is I'll tell you the year. I was a college student. I was a college student who wanted to meet new friends, actually hang out in a public place, and also show off that I'm a very socially conscious kid in my social media pages. That is how I stepped in. I was so reluctant actually in the beginning. But later, after being warmly welcomed by the founding members of Bhumi, onboarding, after directly experiencing the impact I was creating, and definitely I was given enough space to own and lead the change. And here I am into 14th year of Bhumi, not as a volunteer, as a change driver, and who's dealing with volunteer management in Bhumi, and that is how my founder felt that I would be more relevant to this topic. Not just me, my teammates who are here have similar such stories. Okay, how will the session be? Strictly not for only listeners. So we are not going to do talking and listening over here. We are going to unfold the problem as a team together by getting into action, plotting our own plans for our organization so that we could go back and actually implement something to do better with the conversions. And definitely it's going to be basic. So experts here, don't worry, you could better add more flavor to the discussion what we are going to have now. This is something common, but I wanted to start with the ideal version of volunteer engagement cycle. So we have to always begin with the need analysis, followed by onboarding, mapping the right people to the right initiative, tracking the volunteer impact, and definitely recognizing the exceptional contribution. Who are those episodic volunteers? Anyone? Who can be grouped as episodic volunteers? We have different wide range of volunteers saying so many volunteers from different backgrounds who wanted to do different initiatives, who are inclined to different impacts. Who is that episodic volunteers? So the answer is very straightforward. One-time volunteers plus those volunteers who have a very irregular pattern, unpredictable pattern of their creating opportunities for them. So they are the episodic volunteers. Now, moving into what volunteers' motivation. Actually, it is 3 whys. Any organization or any volunteer manager should begin with understanding the 3 whys of why do volunteers step into our organization asking for an opportunity or they wanted to do something. Next, why do they stay involved with the cause? And the third most important why is why are they leaving? Most of the times we tend to miss this understanding the third why. But we should create as many as opportunities to understand the third why better. It could be conducting a survey periodically, having just a one-to-one conversation telling that, hey, hi, you have been missed for some time. May I know the reason, why do you don't want to continue volunteering in this particular thing? A casual conversation. But why this why is important is because, it helps us to improve the focus on the engagement cycle so that we could have a better, not just impact, better partnership between the organization and its volunteers itself. So getting into the details of join, stay, and leave. These are just some of the reasons I feel. So, why do a person wanted to begin with volunteering? The sense of purpose. So I don't do anything purposeful with my day-to-day things. I am busy with the work. I'm a busy professional. I don't have that sense of contributing something to the society. That trigger and the sense of purpose is something key for anyone who is just stepping into volunteering. And I have some exceptional skills which I feel will be impactful to the people. Plus, I need a team. I wanted to the last one is my case. I wanted to do with networking, make new friends. And why do I stay is I get that connection, like having fun as a team together. So I'm not the one person who is being there at the ground volunteering. I have a team, and I've made a meaningful connection, and I could also see the impact himself. The third one is something I wouldn't say it as important, but that's the key. Like, I see my fellow volunteer who is moving up, who's becoming a leader. The transformation of a volunteer who's owning the cause and dealing directly with the impact. As a volunteer, as a teammate, I feel inspired and I wanted to stay. I wanted to follow that journey. So yeah, inspiration and enabling is something, again, some key which helps us to retain our volunteers for a better period of time. And of course, recognition, being applauded, and yes, the third important why, unmet expectation. The first thing is the mistake most of us do, we do as well. At times we desperately need volunteers for certain things. We force fit people into certain opportunities. Their expectations are not met. As in, I'm not motivated by the impact, the expected impact for it. So when I'm mapped to the wrong thing, or when I'm onboarded to a wrong place, when my expectations are not met, I'm not likely to stay with that organization more. And with the limited engagement opportunities. Not going by every point, just telling. Limited engagement opportunities, as in, there are two things here. Onboarding as soon as possible. As in, I wanted to witness the impact, not to undergo the intensive training or other things. Training is very important. Again, without training, I will not be able to do it properly, and I feel that I feel disconnected with the cause. But then, even before proceeding with the training, make them taste the first joy of volunteering on the ground. So don't delay or prolong your onboarding process before actually getting them into the ground. And poor communication, here I refer to sometimes we tend to be less transparent with the expectations. We want them to come in so badly, we don't set the expectations very clearly. When we say that not communicating the expected time, and giving them, not being transparent with what is the actual expectation of that person to volunteer with the organization, is again one of the main reasons to leave. And yeah, lack of bond, time constraint, changing circumstances, inevitable. It happens all the time. So when is the red flag? While understanding why people leave, you should be able to figure out a pattern. Might be for an X impact. People come for the first time, second time, and they are no more. So that is when you have to spend some time in investigating the onboarding process for that particular initiative. Why do people leave after first 2 engagements? So something to do with the better onboarding training. This is kind of irrelevant to the topic, but I so badly wanted to place it here, because when talking about better staying, leaving and all, what are the actual acts which have worked for us in Bhumi, or for me, strengthening their volunteering journey? Better, more than onboarding, recruiting, and more than the numbers, it's about building a very purposeful, meaningful journey for every volunteer who are taking in. Tracking as in paying attention to who is coming back, who is not coming back. That is even more important, telling them that they are being missed. Most of the time we tend to miss it. When a person is absent, we go ahead with it. They don't understand the loss of them not being present in the ground. So strengthening the volunteering journey is something important about this. Second one, decentralization. I think most of them would be using it. Morning in one other session, I heard the same word. Most of the time, we are so connected to the impact that we hold it to ourselves. We don't give the ownership to our volunteers. We tend to only assign tasks. This is something we should look into. A decentralization, as in not just tasks, give the ownership of the cause to the volunteers himself. This is how something will grow in scale, I mean here. A program becomes sustainable only when they have a strong volunteer model. Like, you shouldn't be doing it at all. Even the decision making could be done by a volunteer. We will never know. A new initiative would be started by the volunteer themselves. We have talked enough about celebrating volunteers. So quickly done. Okay, so now what we will be doing is getting into smaller groups of 5 or 6 members. Let's take some time to unclose or tell about the volunteer engagement challenges we face in our own organization. The plan is actually for you to plot a plan about how to better convert your short-term volunteers into long-term volunteers. I will definitely give a prompt, so which I feel as a suggestion for converting volunteers. But before that, 2 minutes you could discuss about your organization, the kind of volunteers you are dealing with, scale of volunteers, scale as in between episodic and long-term volunteers. You can take that 2 minutes, then I will go with the prompts and then we could plot our plans. Thank you. Because I saw anyone having started with dealing with the problem statement itself. So it was just an introduction now. How many of you feel that this is a problem statement, like converting your episodic volunteers into long-term volunteers? Raise your hands. And I'm raising my hand. I'm still dealing with the problem. Some of the prompts here. At the time of crisis, I would take an example of the Chennai floods itself. People who have never thought of becoming a volunteer or even never imagined, they wanted to do something for the immediate set of people who are suffering. This is what I have mentioned it as time of crisis. This spontaneous volunteers who wanted to rise suddenly and create impact. It's an emotional trigger. As a volunteer manager or any volunteer HR or whatever, we have to make best use of these first timers, giving them a very good first experience and giving them actually feel the connection with the cause. We make good use of those thousands of volunteers come up telling that I wanted to do something online, so that I wanted to do something for that location or set of some crisis is happening. So collecting their data, having a good touch with them, touch as in properly onboarding them, understanding what they wanted to do, and communicating the consequences of what happens, them being volunteering and them not being volunteering for the thing they have started on the whole. So yeah, and also finally, take all opportunity to appreciate even for the first time volunteer, because that is in the time of crisis. It's something they have done exceptional to create some immediate change during the time of crisis. So this is one moment or one big opportunity for us to identify and bring in a pool of volunteers who could eventually become our volunteer leaders and long-term volunteers. Who write down the ideas or steps which you would be using to enable your short-term volunteers into long-term volunteers. It could be including a recognition way or creating a leadership model for your organization. And the second one is we deal with this problem, but we fail to distinguish between our episodic and long-term volunteers. We deal with the long-term volunteers most of the time. We tend to somewhat invest less amount of time in identifying who these episodic volunteers are, who are coming and walking out. So the prompt 2 is about distinguishing between the episodic volunteers and long-term volunteers, creating a perfect overlap, as in taking moments to appreciate the long-term volunteers, who in turn will become the inspiration to them, creating opportunity, having an all-volunteers meeting. Just don't invite the long-term volunteers. Call the one-timers as well. Let them feel the connection with the long-term volunteers, so that sharing them about what happened to them through this journey with your organization, how they have been enabled as an individual. Take opportunities to inspire your one-time volunteers through your long-term volunteers, because they speak better than us. The experience shared by a fellow volunteer reaches better, is what I'm trying to say here. And also Stop restricting sending long-term invites only to those regular volunteers. Take moments to even call your one-timers for any more responsible volunteering as well. We never know. It's never a loss, I mean here. It's never a loss if they turn up all of a sudden. And also the last point here is in this prompt is like being flexible enough. Like we don't know. They just again, I'm telling with my example, like I was so restricted to do with only 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But then like step after step, like after being there, okay, 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, like that is how they convert. The journey should eventually happen. But when they don't give the commitment at the first time, we tend to reject them, telling that you won't be fit for this particular thing because we expect more commitment. Of course, that has to be done to avoid with too many volunteers dropping out, but then be having a very flexible plan. As in foreign education initiative, I'm telling this as an example. If we need volunteers for 1 year, too many volunteers might be reluctant to give that commitment all at once. Just start with 3 months. You could then extend. You could come here and teach for 3 months. That way. And finally, the prompt 3, I don't know how relevant it would be for every organization, but I felt like this is again important. When we talk about converting volunteers into long-term volunteers, do we have a proper framework to engage them throughout their journey? See, I will not be willing to do the same thing year after year. So what will my journey as a long-term volunteer or a coordinator would look like in an organization? So I must be able to visualize my journey. So having a proper framework in place where you could involve the volunteers, empower them, and transform them into the leader should be there present. So it should be more like an achievement for me to become a leader of your organization. I have crossed these levels, so I have done this much, and then I'm here. And here I'm now owning the cause, and like I'm doing the decision making, and I'm responsible for my clan of volunteers. So do we have this framework? This is prompt 3. Like even before trying to convert our episodic volunteers into long-term volunteers, do we have a proper framework to accommodate them and equip them is what we have to rethink about. So yeah, these are the 3 prompts which I thought like I would be sharing with you all. Now it's time for us to draft the plan about how, what you are willing to try, or how do you think you could convert your set of people into long-term volunteers? What do we do with the chart paper? Someone is asking here. So you could plot the plan, have it written here so that we could like use it, present it. Write down the ideas or steps which you would be using to enable your short-term volunteers into long-term volunteers. It could be like including a recognition way, or creating a leadership model for your organization.